Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Free Hours. Your boy Trevor Turner. We're back with another video. We're back with another video in our Emotional Intelligence ABC series. The power of connection through emotional intelligence. In this series, we focus on how emotional intelligence empowers us to connect with ourselves and others, leading to fulfilling relationships and personal and professional success. Today, we're on the letter E in our emotional intelligence series. I just want to say thank you for coming by to check out the video. Thank you for coming to rock with me one time. Thank you for coming to listen to what I got to say. If at the end of this video, if you like what you heard, like the video, if you want to hear more of it, subscribe to the channel. I hope that you will. I hope you'll join the family. But most importantly, even if you don't do any of those other things, if there is something in here that resonates with you, if there is something in here that I'm talking about with this subject and I've missed something that you know about that could help somebody else, put it in the comments. If that's all that happens is that you leave a comment that reached somebody in a better way than I could or explained it to somebody in a better way than I could, then I consider this a success. I consider this a good conversation, successful conversation. So please join the conversation. And I'm going to start with a question. What if the key to stronger relationships is learning to step into someone else's shoes? That's right. We're on the letter E again. We're talking about E for empathy in the context of emotional intelligence. And what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about the importance of empathy in emotional intelligence. We're going to be talking how it enhances personal and professional relationships. And we're going to be talking about practical strategies for developing empathy in your everyday life. So what is empathy? Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And we're differentiating here between cognitive empathy, which is understanding someone's perspective, and emotional empathy, which is feeling what someone else feels. And the best way I can break this thing down is there are a lot of people who would say, I don't understand what you're feeling, but I'm not going to do anything to what quote unquote invalidate your feelings about the situation. That is not emotional empathy. That's cognitive empathy. When you're able to only look at something from somebody's perspective, but you're not able to actually step into their shoes to start feeling even glimpses or glimmers of what it is that they're feeling. When you are not able to put yourself fully into their situation on an emotional level, and a lot of times it does stem from not being able to put yourself in their situation on an intellectual level, but it's levels to it. I can understand where you're coming from on a mental level. I just don't agree with it. I don't feel it. I don't understand it. And that blocks you from getting to emotional empathy, which is feeling what someone else feels. So let's talk about why empathy is crucial in emotional intelligence. Empathy is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence. It plays a critical role in building trust, deepening relationships, and improving communication. Now, when we talk about Daniel Goleman, psychologist and author of the groundbreaking book Emotional Intelligence, which popularized the concept and emphasized the importance of empathy in personal and professional settings, he said that in his work on emotional intelligence, empathy is one of the core components of emotional intelligence. And now when we talk about things like awareness being one of the other core components, awareness is obviously more about us and about what we're feeling, because there are two aspects to emotional intelligence. Being able to know what it is that you are feeling, being able to know why it is that you are feeling what you are feeling, being able to unpack your own feelings, being able to understand and deal with and unpack your own triggers, right? Anything that puts you into any type of emotional state, being able to manage those emotions also. But then we also have to look about it. It is also perception of emotion. It's also being able to see and recognize, understand, and feel the emotions of other people. And this is one of the things I talked a lot about even before I started the Emotional Intelligence series, but it's something that I talked about when I first kind of started in on this series, is that a lot of times we only get half of emotional intelligence. We only come up with the first half of emotional intelligence, just like we only come up with the first half of communication. We think that knowing how to unpack our own baggage, we think that knowing how to understand the things that we are going through, we think that knowing how to protect our own peace, we think that knowing how to keep ourselves from going through these triggers, just us, that is the limit, the extent, and the core of emotional intelligence. It is only half. It's only a piece. It's less than half. It's only a piece of emotional intelligence. And I would argue that it is not the most important piece. I would argue that if they are not equally important, I would argue that being able to put yourself in the shoes of other people would be more important. Now, that's not to say that awareness and being able to manage and deal with your own emotions and being able to keep balance and be able to keep calm and things like that, being able to, make decisions properly for yourself when dealing with emotional states is not important and is not a necessity or necessary for growth. But I'm saying that empathy is what's going to get you over the next level, because especially when I go back to the things that I read and the things that I put together with the 7 habits. And I always mention the 7 habits. I mention the 7 habits a lot. I even did a book review on the 7 habits. It's a longer video, but it's on my channel. Check it out if you have the chance. Do it in sections. There are private and public victories. There are things that we have to do to become a whole person, a whole independent person. And the things that we do to become whole independent people are the awareness factors, are knowing, recognizing, dealing with, living with, managing, handling our own emotions. But to become an interdependent person, which is the more or less closer to the peak of human achievement, more or less closer to the peak of human existence, more or less closer to the peak of being emotionally intelligent, closer to the peak of being who you need to be able to achieve purpose, to be able to operate and thrive in this world. That's empathy. Those are those public victories. Is being able to see yourself in somebody else's shoes, being able to see yourself from somebody else's perspective, being able to see the plans that you're trying to put together, the plans that you're trying to make for your business, the plans that you're trying to make that have to do with other employees, the plans that you were trying to make, the things that you were trying to do, and how they will affect other people on not only a physical but an emotional level. And that's why empathy is a core component of emotional intelligence. And let's talk about the science behind it real quick, and then we'll move on. Empathy activates specific regions of the brain. We have things like mirror neurons. We have specific regions of the brain that get activated by empathy because they allow us to feel what others are experiencing. It is our natural state of being to be able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. It is our natural state of being to be able to look at what somebody else is going through and not just see what they're going through, not just understand what they're going through. Like, okay, I know you're about to lose your house, so that means you're going to be homeless. I know that when you're homeless, you're going to lose your kids. And I know it all started because you were being abused by somebody and you didn't feel like calling the police, and then he decided to kick you out. And I know these things cognitively. I know these things intellectually. I know these things up here mentally. But the thing is, I don't feel anything for you. And the thing about it is this, is that if you don't feel anything for somebody going through certain situations, you have to naturally fight that inclination. You're going to want to feel things for people. You're going to want to feel things for people, especially people who look like you, especially people who remind you of you, especially people who share your experiences. If you ever think about this, if you ever look at a brother and a sister, a young brother and a young sister, kids, or 2 young brothers, if one starts crying, sometimes the other one will start crying too. If one is going through some stuff, and you can look on their face. If one's getting whooped, the other one will be like this when they're really young, because we have things like mirror neurons. Dr. Tanya Singer, neuroscientist known for her work on empathy and social cognition, studied how empathy impacts brain function. And she talked about that mirror neurons are responsible for the automatic connection we feel when seeing someone else in pain or in joy. There is an automatic connection that we have with other people and the emotional states of other people. There's an automatic connection that we have that allows us to put ourselves into other people's shoes. Now, life may have beat this out of us. Society may have beat this out of us. The things that we see may have beat this out of us. But there is a reason that social media is such a huge thing. There is a reason that these platforms are such huge things, because we look at the joys of other people. We look at the angers of other people. We look at the things that people are going through, or the things that people have gone through, the things that people have strove through, the things that people have succeeded through. And we feel that connection with those people. That's why we like the things that we like. That's why we laugh at the things that we laugh at. That's why we look and be like, oh yeah, okay, my guy got it. That's also why those feelings come up of things like jealousy, because you feel the same things that they feel. You just don't like the fact that you haven't felt them in your own life. There's an automatic connection. We're wired like that. We're supposed to be like that. Let's talk about the benefits of empathy. Empathetic individuals are more likely to have strong social connections. They're more likely to resolve conflicts peacefully, and they're more likely to experience greater personal and professional success. Harvard Business Review is a respected publication that provides research-based insights on leadership and organizational performance. Harvard Business Review article that highlighted how empathy in leadership results in higher employee satisfaction engagement. Now, this is one of the things I talked about in my last video, in one of my previous videos, when I talked about how empathy makes you a better leader, how empathy makes you a better manager, how empathy makes you a better business owner. Because what happens is this: the bad leaders, and we all know them, those bad bosses, a lot of times they get hired because, or they get put in those positions they're put in because they have the willingness and the ability to turn that switch off, right? The willingness and the ability to focus only on the bottom line. The willingness and the ability to make sure that everybody is doing at very least the bare minimum of what it is that they're doing, right? And things like that. Obviously, these huge corporations that only give a fuck about the bottom line and their margins and things like that, they're okay with that. But when you come into a smaller place, when you come into a place where, or a business where this thing was that person's dream, where this thing was that person's purpose, where this thing was that person's only goal and their only driving force in life, those people succeed better. They do better when they have empathy. They do better because they look at the way that their company runs. They look at the way that everything functions, not as like an assembly line. They look at it like, and the example I used last time, it was like a luxury watch. If you open up a luxury watch, you cannot take the gears in there. You cannot take the inner workings of that and just switch them around and put them wherever you want to put them. You have to put the things in their exact respective places, the things in the places where they belong, the places in the spots where they thrive, not just survive, the places in the spots where they can play to their strengths and be able to downplay their weaknesses and stuff like that. It comes from empathy. It comes from being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. It comes from being able not to just think about what the other person might be going through. Think about what the other person might be thinking. You know what? I can kind of understand why this person would be thinking that, but since I can't feel it, I won't be able to act on it in an effective way. If I can feel what this person is going through, if I can feel what this person has going on, if I can feel what this person, if their emotions can resonate with me and that automatic connection is there, I can put this place in a place where they can thrive. And then they'll see that I'm doing that. They'll see those things that I'm doing for them. And just like I push people who are working for other people to give everything that they got every single time that they're at that place or at that place of work, every single time that they're on the clock, I implore people to give everything that they have, to put everything that they can into it, to put all of their energy into it. Put all of your empathy back into those people. It's not a one-sided thing. It's never, ever been about a one-sided thing. If you are somebody who owns a business or runs a business or manages a business or even a shift manager, put 100% of your empathy back into those people, because that is the same and a fair and deserved exchange equivalent for those people who are coming to work and saying, you know what, I'm not going to do the bare minimum. I'm not going to come to work and say, okay, I make $16 an hour. I'm only giving you $16 an hour of what I feel that you deserve for $16 an hour. I'm only giving you that level of work. I'm only giving you that level of time instead of giving you everything that I can give you to show you that I earn more. The problem is that a lot of these people, they fight against that and they buck against the things when I say like that is because when they go to work, that shift manager, that general manager, that district manager, the owner of that company, the people in these management positions give them the same or less, and most of the time it's way less, level of empathy than they give in effort. Somebody could be going through an emergency and their boss is going to say, okay, well, are you still going to be able to make it in today? Somebody could break their back trying to lift some shit. And their boss is going to say, well, you never said that you needed an accommodation to do this stuff. Someone could be late because they're getting pulled over by the police. And the boss could say, well, you know what? You were expected to be here on time, so maybe you should just leave early. Maybe you should factor in the fact that you're black and you'll get pulled over more often. And then they wonder why these employees do the bare minimum or less. They wonder why these employees spend more time in the bathroom than doing work. They wonder why these employees only put not even their best foot forward, but put a foot forward when they're sitting there looking at them and watching them, because you aren't putting your best empathy forward. You aren't putting your best heart forward. If you want to be a better leader, if you want to be better management, if you want to have better organizational performance, put your best foot forward when it comes to empathy. Just the same way that I tell them to put their best foot forward. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. The way you treat any of your employees is the way you treat all of your employees. And people see that. People see that. This is why you never go to Walmart and you hear about, this dude was like, I came across this Walmart employee and they just went above and beyond. You don't hear about shit like that. When you do, you hear about shit like that, it goes viral because it's so rare. And it's not because the people who work at Walmart are lazy, useless people. It's because the people who work at Walmart work for fucking uncaring and heartless people. Put your best empathy foot forward, they'll put their best foot forward. Obviously, if you've listened to any of my videos, I've been telling people to put their best foot forward and not wait for any type of reciprocation. Just find something and put your best foot forward at it. Don't wait for reciprocation from the people that you're leading, from the people within your organization. Just put your best empathy forward now. Don't expect reciprocation. Don't expect them to jump and all of a sudden they say, yes, sir, I got you. Yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go above and beyond for your dream and your business. I'm going to make sure that you make $1 million this year because you treated me nice one time when you haven't been treating them nice the entire time they've been working there. Start putting your best empathy forward now. Start putting yourself in their shoes now. And I guarantee you, when you're in their shoes with them, their foot will go forward. That best foot will be forward. I guarantee you. So let's talk about developing empathy in our daily life. Let's talk about how we get to empathy. And this is for the people who just find it to like, why can't I care about what other people are going through? I can't bring myself to put myself in somebody else's shoes. I can't bring myself to put somebody else, and they think that by putting themselves in somebody else's shoes that they're putting that other person above them. You're not. You're just putting them on equal footing with you. And if putting somebody on equal footing with you does not warrant the type of stuff that I'm about to talk about now, then you need to go back and you need to go to the awareness. You need to go back and you need to start doing some work on yourself. You need to go back and start healing your trauma. You need to go back and start unpacking your blue beads. You need to start working on your self-confidence. Because if you're not able to put people that you see yourself in on a higher level, that means that you haven't been able to put yourself on a higher level. But if you've been working with me, and if you've been going through the things that we've been going through together with me, if you've been reading the books and doing the work, if you've been listening to things that I've been saying, if you've been organizing your life in such a different way, if you've been changing, if you've been seeing results and getting your small changes and your small goals and turning them and parlaying them into bigger goals and parlaying them into bigger achievements. If you've been doing that, taking your small choices and parlaying them into bigger choices, if you've been doing that, you'll be able to do this very easily. So let's talk about it. Active listening. The importance of listening without interrupting, listening without judging, listening without jumping to conclusions. And this is something I got a problem with. I don't really have the problem with it now, but this is something I had a problem with, is waiting, just not even listening to hear and understand what the other person was saying, but waiting for my chance to respond, looking for the spot to get in, looking for the spot to prove my point, looking for the spot to go against their argument, or going against the one thing that they said while ignoring everything else that they said. If you want to get to empathy, I would encourage active listening as a foundational empathy skill. And I would encourage you to start trying to practice it by focusing fully on the speaker. When you are listening to somebody actively, you are taking in everything that they're doing, not only saying, but everything that they're doing as well. You're looking them in the eyes. You're noticing their facial expressions. You're watching their lips. You're looking at their body language. You're looking at the way that they're standing, the way they've positioned themselves. You're looking at whether they're tensed up, whether they're like this, whether they're relaxed. You look at like how they're sitting, how they're standing, whatever the case. If they're pointing to something, you're looking at what they're pointing at. If they're using hand gestures, you're watching all of these things. At the same time, while you're listening to everything that they're doing, you're listening to every tone. You're listening to every inflection. You're listening to how they use every word. And if you know somebody well enough, you'll know like, okay, they don't normally say that word like that. They must be on edge, or they must be super happy, or they must be super sad. They normally don't say that word. It must be something going on that's a little bit different. This must be a different type of conversation. They normally don't use these hand expressions. They normally don't use these gestures. They normally don't have their face scrunched up. They normally don't have their jaw clenched. They normally don't have this. They're normally not smiling like that. They're normally not like this. So what is going on? And then what you're doing is you're not trying to judge what it is that they're going through. You're not trying to offer any type of solutions to the things that they're going through. You're not trying to protect yourself either in anything that they're going through. You're just listening, analyzing, understanding, putting yourself in their shoes. That is what you do with active listening. And then when they're done speaking, you acknowledge their feelings and respond thoughtfully. Respond according to what they feel, not what you think they should feel, not what you think they shouldn't feel, not what you think if they should feel something or not. And not even in a way like, look, I don't necessarily understand what you're going through, but I'm not going to invalidate your feelings. Because what you've done is you've actually literally invalidated their whole experience. You've just basically told them, like, I can't relate, but you got feelings, so I'm not going to invalidate what you got going on. That means that is a cop-out to me. Like that statement, and it's used a lot in education, that shit is a fucking cop-out. That just means you're not even going to try to put yourself in their feelings. You're just not going to invalidate. Like, that's your truth. If it's their truth, and if you're saying, and people don't know what a backhanded statement that is. Well, they're going through something. They must be feeling something because that's their truth. That means that you don't believe it to be a truth. It's just their perspective. It's how they see things. And it's not necessarily related to reality. Don't do those things like that. Acknowledge that the feelings are there. Acknowledge that they are real. Acknowledge that whatever situation caused them to feel the feelings, even though that situation wouldn't make you feel the way it made them feel, acknowledge it and think about it. Try to make sense of it. Try to put those dots together and respond thoughtfully. Perspective taken. Cognitive empathy is about stepping into someone else's shoes and seeing the world from their perspective. And that's the easy part. I encourage you to consciously practice perspective taking in challenging situations, though. That's the harder part. When it feels like someone may be challenging you, when it feels like someone is emotionally charged and you feel like you want to defend yourself, and still being able to cognitively understand what it is that they're going through, still being able to have that cognitive empathy, still being able to take the step back and look at things the way that they look at things, and look at situations the way that they look at situations, because they might be telling you something about you. They might be telling you something about a system that you put in place. They might be telling you about something that your family did. They might be telling you something that you just do not fucking understand and do not get. So your first thing is you want to defend yourself. Your first thing is you want to judge what it is that they're talking about. The first thing is you want to justify what it is that you're doing. The first thing is you want to say, you know what, I disagree. No, take the step back. Consciously practice taking their perspective and seeing the world from their shoes. And then we talk about reflective practice. I encourage you to reflect on your interactions with others. Just reflect on your interactions with others. Think about the last time you interacted with somebody, whether it was an emotionally charged situation or whether it was something, just a regular conversation. Just start asking yourself questions. How did that person feel? What could they be experiencing? And the thing about it is this. If you aren't able to go back to the majority of your reactions and know how that person was feeling, then that means that you probably weren't practicing a lot of empathy in that particular situation. If you couldn't answer what it is that they were experiencing, you probably weren't practicing empathy in that situation. So do that to see where you can improve. So let's talk about empathy in professional and personal relationships, empathy in the workplace. Empathetic leadership It fosters collaboration, trust, and better communication among team members. Empathy helps managers understand their employees' needs, leading to increased motivation and increased productivity. Empathy helps the bottom line. When we talk about leadership, that's where we get the empathy. Because a lot of times what happens is that the people who are expected to put forth effort are the team members. The people who are expected to put forth effort, time, commitment, the people who are expected to put their all on the line, those are the people that you are leading. Those are the people that you are managing. And the problem is that when you are in turn expected to give that same empathy, when you are in turn expected to understand their needs, when you are in turn expected to have better communication, when you are in turn expected to give a fuck about them, you just won't do it. And this is a lot of people who lead people. They don't have that empathy. Because you have to replace, when you get put into a leadership position, when you get put into an ownership position, when you get put into these certain positions, right? When you've been saving up money and you've been working in an industry for so long that you learn the ins and outs of it, you've put forth all the effort. You've learned all the organized knowledge. You've learned and got all the connections that you needed to get. So now you know everything you need to know to start this business. You know everybody you need to know to start this business. You have the money to do it. You've got your credit up so you can go get something from the bank. Now, the thing about it is that when you start that business at the beginning, it's going to require just as much, if not more, effort. But when you get it going and you get it off the ground and now you're able to get more people in to put forth the effort for you, you have to replace that effort with something. And the thing that you're supposed to replace it with is empathy. Increases motivation. It increases productivity. It fosters collaboration, trust, and better communication. If you have a culture of empathy, if you have a culture of giving a fuck about the people that work for you, if you have a culture about giving a fuck about the people who come to work with you, if you give a fuck about somebody who's wearing the same uniform that you're wearing, then the people who work under you will give a fuck about the people wearing the same uniform that they're wearing. It's contagious. It catches. Empathy is something that goes a long way. And when you add empathy into that equation, it produces effort. It brings forth effort. It brings forth motivation. If you give a fuck about people, 9 times out of 10, these people will give a fuck about you back. So let's talk about in personal relationships. Empathy strengthens personal relationships by improving communication and emotional connection. It allows people to feel heard, and understood. That's the same thing with the effort. If someone doesn't feel like their efforts are understood, if someone doesn't feel like their efforts are valued, if someone doesn't feel like their concerns are being heard or cared about, they're not going to continue to put effort and energy and care into the relationship. It's not a one-way street. You have to care. You have to care. When it comes to personal relationships, if you aren't able to put yourself in somebody's shoes, if you're not able to look at through their eyeballs every now and again, if you're not able to see things from their perspective without feeling attacked or without feeling like, oh, well, they're trying to say it's my fault, or they're trying to say this and I need to defend myself. I got to justify what I'm doing. I got to attack back. I got to do this. I got to do that. See, the problem with it is this, especially when it comes to relationships, especially when it comes to things like dating, everything is not an attack. Everything is not a personal attack. Everything is not a personal bombardment. Everything is not an attack on your character. Everything is not an attack. And even if it is an attack, it's not an attack on you. It's an attack on the things that you did. It's an attack on something you said or didn't say. It's an attack on something you did or didn't do. It's an attack on the little things that you consistently do or do not do. It's an attack on your lack of understanding of their love language. It's an attack on their lack of understanding of your love language. It is never an attack on who you are as a person. But we take it as that. And the reason is that because a lot of people fall in love with the gesture. And this is something I've seen going around. And this is like probably the best way to explain it, is that we fall in love with the gesture. I didn't fall in love with who she was. I fell in love with what she did for me. I fell in love with what she gave me. I fell in love with what she told me. I fell in love with what she did for me, right? I didn't fall in love with that person, and that person knows it. So that way, when I'm talking about the things that they do, when I'm talking about the things that they say, they know deep down that I never fell in love with them as a person. I never even got to meet them as a person. So when I am attacking all of these things that they do or say or quote unquote bring to the table, they take that as an attack on them, because I'm literally attacking all of them that I know. And it's not because these people lack substance. It's not because these people lack character. It's just about the fact that is the way that, things are just set up now. You fall in love with what it is they do for you. You fall in love with their sex. You fall in love with his money. You fall in love with the words that she tells you. You fall in love with the things that he buys for you or does for you. You fall in love with the places he takes you. You fall in love with her personality, her smile, her jokes. You fall in love with the way that she makes you feel. You fall in love with the way that she cooks. You fall in love with the way that she does or does this or does that. You don't even know her, because she's trying to match you gesture for gesture. She doesn't even know you, because you're trying to provide gesture after gesture. And what happens is that we have two people who don't even know the other person, don't know the character of the other person. And when they start to say things about the things that they do, about their actions or their lack of actions, about their words or their lack of words, or about their attitude or lack of attitude, the thing that happens is, we get defensive. We get defensive because all this female knows about me is the things that I do. So now she's talking about the things that I do. She doesn't know anything else about me to be criticizing. So she's criticizing this. That's all she knows about me. So she doesn't like anything about me. So now I want to defend myself. Now I'm getting worried. Now I'm getting scared. Now I'm getting insecure. And the problem is, if you're able to take the step back and say, look, okay, I know you don't like this. I know you don't like these actions. I know you don't like these words. I know you don't like those things. If I want to keep this relationship going, if I think that the relationship is worth the time and energy, if I feel like the relationship is worth the commitment, then I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, like, that is not me. That's not my character. That is not who I am as a core of a person. I don't have to take that personally. I can take a look at you, at your complaints through your shoes, and I can say, okay, I understand why that would make you feel like jealous. I understand why that could make you feel insecure in our relationship, because I've been doing all these things for you. I've been telling you all these sweet things. I've been whispering all those sweet nothings into your ear. I've been doing all of these things. And now I'm making it seem as if I'm doing those same things for somebody else. And I can understand how that would make you feel jealous. I can understand how that would make you feel jealous. I've been giving my body to you. I've been having sex with you. I've been, sending you nice pictures. I've been doing all these things. I've been flirting. I've been showing off. I've been doing these things to make you feel like more of a man. I can understand how me posting those pictures, I can understand how me talking to this other dude, I can understand how me smiling at this dude in that way, or me looking at this person in that way, could make you feel uncomfortable. I can understand that, because those are the things that I do for you. Now, I understand that you're not supposed to fall in love with the gesture, but the problem is that's just the way dating's set up. So if the desire is there for this to work, then the effort needs to come. But it has to start with the empathy. So you can even understand why somebody would feel the way that they would feel. So let's sum this up real quick. We're going to talk about overcoming barriers. We're going to talk about overcoming barriers to empathy. Number one, emotional burnout. We're going to talk about the challenge of emotional burnout, particularly for people who frequently practice empathy in caregiving or leadership roles, especially when it comes to leadership, especially when it comes to caring for other people. And this is something that goes both ways. When I was talking to people about putting their best foot forward and giving effort, when I was talking to people and telling them to do that, I know full well that they are working for people, that they are living with people, that they are caring for people, that they are putting their best foot forward for people who are not going to reciprocate anything. They are doing these things, but you have to do it in full expectation that you may not get anything back. You have to do it without expectations. You have to do this just for the sake of doing it, because you're not going to get anything back. You can't expect things from other people. And the thing is, that is where you start to set boundaries. That is where you start to do self-care. You have to recognize who you can and cannot do these things for. The problem is, and this is the problem, because everybody say, okay, Well, yeah, that's what I've been doing before. I've been recognizing who I can and can't do it for. The problem is that you think that you need to wait for somebody to start pouring into you to pour back into them. What you need to do is you need to set boundaries for how much you pour into that person, how often you pour into that person. You need to set boundaries for how often you pour back into yourself. But that doesn't mean stop pouring into people. And that doesn't mean giving them a trickle. That doesn't mean giving them a little bit. That doesn't mean giving them only a section of you. That doesn't mean giving them only a piece of you. That means that you pour everything. Every time you pour everything. Every time you see it from their perspective, you see everything. Every time you try to feel what they're feeling, you feel everything. And you don't limit. What you do is you just set the boundaries. Not walls either. Boundaries. Because boundaries are like borders. They're meant to go. You're meant to go back and forth. You're meant to be able to go through, in, and around a boundary. Boundaries are meant to be flexible. Boundaries are like doors or gates. Boundaries are not walls. And then another way to do it is to balance your empathy with self-compassion so you don't overextend yourself. A lot of times we're not even pouring out into the wrong people. We're just never pouring back into ourselves. A lot of times what we're doing is we're so worried about being hurt that we won't pour into anybody. But then when we do find somebody else that we can pour into and they won't hurt us, we never pour back into ourselves. So we do get drained. We do get burned out and we feel like that person did it. No, it's us. We didn't pour back into ourselves. And then we're going to talk about how to overcome judgment and bias. Personal judgments or biases can block empathy. Challenge your assumptions. Practice open-mindedness to better connect with others. Actively look for similarities between yourselves and someone that you may have judged in the past. Before you're quick to jump up and condemn somebody for having a differing opinion, try to look for similarities between you two. Try to look for the things that bring you together. Try to look for the things that make you the same instead of the things that make you different. And I know it may not be as simple as just doing this, but it's one of the things that I learned when I started trying to look for God in everybody. If I know Yahweh is in me, and I know I was created by a certain being, and I believe that everybody else was created by that being too, then that means that he's got to be in there somewhere. He has to be in there somewhere. Maybe they like the same type of jokes that I like. They may not share the same political views. They might not share the same views on certain groups of people that I share because they don't have those experiences, but they might like the same type of jokes. We might like the same type of sports. We might wear the same type of clothes. We might even like the same type of music. We might work in the same field or industry. We might have so much in common. Look for those similarities. Look for the things that are going to bridge the gap. And that helps you put yourself into their shoes. And that's it. It's been emotional intelligence. It's been empathy. We talked about empathy as a cornerstone of emotional intelligence. We talked about the science behind empathy. We talked about a few strategies for developing empathy. And, of course, we talked about its importance in both personal and professional relationships. I encourage everybody to start practicing empathy today. Actively practicing. Actively reflecting. Think about the last person you talked with. Think about how they were feeling. Think about what it is that we're going through. And if you knew what they were feeling, try to feel what they felt. Try to understand why they felt what they felt. Try to put yourself in that experience and not in the way that you would have felt it if you were going through it. But try to see it from their point of view. Go through the same experience mentally. Go through the same experience in your mind and try to bring yourself to feeling the same thing so you can understand why they felt the way that they felt. Empathy is about finding echoes of another person in yourself. That's all it is. Empathy is about holding up a mirror and seeing yourself in that mirror instead of just that other person. It's about seeing God in that other person. It's about seeing humanity in that other person. And it's as simple as that. All right? Thank you for watching The Free Hour. It's your boy Tree, Trevor Turner. Deuces.